recently wrapped up season 13 and the finale was explosive. It got so heated that Joe and Melissa Gorka did not go to Teresa Giudice's wedding days later, and it all came from an alleged rumor made by Margaret Josephs to her former best friend of over 40 years, Laura Lee Jansen. We have tons of exclusives on what happened during the finale on allabouttrh.com. But today we will be talking exclusively to Laura Jensen herself to get her side of the story and to see who truly was behind this cheating rumor. So let's get started. Hello, Laura.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm great. So we have a lot to talk about. And before we get started, let's quickly recap what's going on because you've been the talk of the town, right? So you're Margaret's former best friend. We officially learned about you after we got confirmation that a fight between Melissa and Teresa happened during the season finale taping of New Jersey. And it was filmed just days before Teresa's wedding. And it was over a rumor that Melissa allegedly cheated on Joe Gorka, and the rumor started with Margaret telling you. So, first, tell us how long you've known Margaret, how this all came about.
Okay, so Margaret and I have known each other for over 40 years.
Wow.
Yep, we were very good friends, and we had a falling out back in December.
Okay.
So,
And that's like sisters. You guys are sisters. I mean, I looked at your Instagram page and it seems like you guys did everything together.
yes, we did. I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say that I considered her a sister. I loved and respected her.
Absolutely. So, what happened? Why did the friendship end?
So in December, we had a falling out. And I think there were a couple of things that were leading up to it, but it was an argument over a Christmas party that she had invited me to, and she texted me to say that she wasn't going to be coming with me to a Botox appointment that we were going to go to because she had to get a COVID test for a party in the city that she was going to be going to, and she happened to have invited me to that party too. And I was thinking to myself, well, wouldn't I need the COVID test too? So
Right.
I wrote back and said, I don't know if you remember, but you invited me too to the party. And, she wrote back, yes, but Joe and Dave, our two husbands, were going to be going out that night somewhere separate, and their event got canceled. But to me, although I knew it was canceled, it didn't really mean anything to me because there were many times where I went out with Margaret and Joe and Dave weren't there. So I didn't necessarily know that I wasn't going to this party anymore, which would have been totally fine. But I felt very disregarded and like she didn't even consider me. It just was like she wasn't even going to say anything to me. So, she wrote back, well, they're not going. And we went back and forth, and it just snowballed. And I got mad and I said some things to her and she said some things to me, and it ended in her telling me that we needed to take a break. And it was, right before Christmas. It was more than a week away from Christmas. And, I was upset and I thought, okay, this isn't going to end our friendship. And I figured that she would call and say, Christmas is still on, because the other thing is we spend the holidays together and Christmas is one of them. And I never heard from her. So time was passing by, and then that was December, and then about 2 months later in February, her husband blocked me on Instagram, and he told my husband that it was because Margaret made him. She had seen that I liked something on Instagram of Teresa's. And I couldn't believe it, that she actually would have him block me because of that. So
Right.
that was that. And, you know, it was no secret that I had been interviewing before to get on the show. And I knew I still wanted to get on the show. And I decided at that point I called Teresa and we spoke. And, you know, she asked me, how come you're not on the show? And I said, you know, I interviewed in the past. I want to be on the show. And she said, I'm putting you in right now. And within 30 minutes, I got a text message and I spoke to someone and we set up a meeting for the next day to do a phone interview. And, you know, her and I spoke then either the next day or, you know, and we made a plan to meet up. And then Jennifer and I met up.
Right. Well, so before we get into that, so you said you've been interviewed to get on the show. Was Margaret aware? Was she vouching for you? What happened? How many interviews did you do? How long have you been trying?
Okay, so yes, a few years ago, she had said to me, they're going to be interviewing for the show, and I think that you should come on as a friend. And I thought that was great. And I said, okay. And I interviewed and I didn't get on. And then the following year, I received a phone call for an interview. And I thought that when I called her to tell her that I had an interview, she seemed surprised. And so I wasn't sure like where that was coming from. But previous to that, I felt like apprehension from her, like that she didn't want me. When we talked about it, I kind of felt like she didn't want me on the show. And I asked her, I said, do you not want me on the show? And she explained a few things to me. And she said, well, you know, I don't want it to be like when I get pressed, Jackie gets very jealous. And I don't want that to happen with you. I don't want you to be jealous. And I was so surprised because she knows me. And I have done nothing but lift her up and be happy and never jealous about anything with her. So I was so unsure where that was even coming from. So I
Right.
said to her, I'm not that girl. I don't know why you would think that. And so we talked and she seemed to be okay with it. And then a few weeks later, I think it was, I got a call for an interview and I told her about it and she seemed very surprised about it. And that was it. I had an interview and as did the time before, I had great feedback. I thought my interview went so well and I didn't get it, but that's the way it goes, you know?
But you're making her aware. You're not doing this behind her back where she would be shocked if you like join the
No.
show. She knows everything. Like you're being transparent with her, correct?
Oh, totally. I'm texting her my interview pictures. I'm telling her everything.
Okay, so she knows everything, but you know her better than anyone. So you felt like maybe she didn't want you to join her, and the Jackie thing might have explained that. Is that correct?
Well, she said that, you know, here's the reason why, and, you know, there's this, and we spoke about it, and she seemed okay with it, and I don't know, you know, she never came out and said to me, no, I don't want you on the show, but she seemed to have some apprehensions about it, um,
Right.
and that was it. But she
So,
knew, and you know, I always told her how my interview went, what they asked me. I sent the pictures, you know.
right. Well, so what made you meet up with Teresa and Jennifer?
So I so then that was the following season, and when I spoke to Teresa and she put me, so when they called me, Teresa put me in, they called me, I texted her and said, oh, they called me, and we made a plan to meet up and talk about things that were going on and what had happened between Margaret and I and our friendship. And they were curious to know. And if I was going to get on the show, I obviously would need to be brought on by somebody. It wasn't going to be Margaret anymore. She obviously wasn't my friend anymore. And I was going to try to align with them. I knew them. It's not like I didn't know them.
Right.
So we
And
met.
and so that was this year. So filming for season 13 was in May. You met with Teresa and Jennifer in February.
Correct.
Okay. And talk to me about how that went.
So we met and we had, a great time. We talked about so many things, not just the show. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about Teresa's wedding. We talked about kids, just a lot of things. And we talked about possible ways of, how I would come on the show with Jennifer and just different things that we could do. And it was a great meeting. And then about 2 weeks later, I got a very nasty text message from Margaret saying that Jennifer, that I met with her castmates to try to go behind her back and all this stuff. And that, why would I trust Jennifer? She gave me up. But at this point, Margaret and I weren't even friends anymore, and I had nothing to say to her anymore. So she could say whatever she wanted. And so that was it. Things just went along. And then when I didn't answer her, and obviously she didn't like that, she sent a text message, which was out there, to a group of people who, admittedly so, she introduced me to, and sent to them saying that I was a snake and a beast. And, it was very upsetting to me. And none of those women ever spoke to me again. So she was obviously on a crusade to make people hate me. And that's how it went.
Absolutely. And so your mutual friends, none of them talk to you anymore?
No, but they were her friends first. She did introduce me to them.
Okay. All right. And then now your name got brought up because of this cheating rumor. Allegedly, Melissa cheated on Joe with a man named Nick. Um, how did that get brought up with Teresa and Jennifer?
So that was brought up in our talks that day. Now, that was not even the topic of our day. That was not something that it didn't come out after 20 minutes as I saw somewhere. It was way later on. It was something that we talked about, and it was something that I said, and it wasn't cheating on, it was caught kissing. And what I said was, I did not know for a fact if Melissa actually did it. What I was told by Margaret was that Melissa was caught by someone. But I
So,
did not have the facts that she did it. I don't know if she did it. I just know from Margaret what I was told. I only repeated what I was told. But I was with Teresa, who I can 100% say was her brother, and she did not want him or his family to be hurt. And we specifically spoke about this was never going to be brought to TV. It was only going to be talked about. And we discussed about me wanting to meet with Melissa and just warn her about the fact that if Margaret told me that, I'm sure other people knew it too. And I can be quite certain that I'm not the only person that knew about it. So I wanted to let her know that she should be careful what she confides in her. And that was the end of it. And Teresa said, he's my brother. I would never want him to be hurt or his family hurt. And it was the same for me. I would never try to hurt Melissa or Joe or their family or anyone else. I really never thought it would go anywhere.
Yeah, at this point, it's just a rumor that you're repeating that
It was a
Margaret had told
rumor,
you.
totally.
Right.
And it was more about the fact of, why does Melissa think she can trust Margaret so much?
Right. Did Margaret tell you she saw this?
No, she did not see it. Someone else saw it and told her. And she told me that she spoke with Melissa about it.
So Margaret is now going online saying that you're lying about everything. She's calling you thirsty. She's saying that you want to be on the show. What do you have to say to that? What's your response to that?
Well, I mean, honestly, the minute I told the truth, I was labeled desperate and thirsty. So if truth equals thirsty, if that's the way it's going to go, then call me thirsty. I'll take
Right.
it because it's the truth. There's no other reason. I never set out to hurt anybody. This has nothing to do with me trying to get on the show. It's the most ridiculous thing.
Did you know at the season finale that this rumor came out?
Clueless.
So you
I
had no
was
idea.
minding my business in Montauk, and I was sent something that I never even heard of before, called the Morgan letters or Morgan letter or something like that. And it talked about this whole thing, and I couldn't believe it. So I was completely in the dark about it. I was blindsided. I had no idea. No one told me about it. I was texting with Teresa on Thursday morning, wishing her luck for her wedding, and nothing was said to me. Nothing. No one told me a word about it.
Wow. So our sources tell us that it was never supposed to get brought up. It got brought up when Margaret went after Jennifer and accused her of doing drugs. And then Jennifer tells the newbie about this. And then the newbie, Danielle, confronts Melissa during the season finale. And then that's when Melissa immediately blames Teresa, says Teresa is behind it. Why do you think Melissa believes Teresa's behind it? Why is Margaret not getting blamed for this?
Because if Melissa were to blame Margaret and show that she's mad at Margaret, that would actually be admitting that something happened and something was said. And they've had plenty of time to work on this because they knew it could come out.
Right.
So I'm sure that Margaret told Melissa, do not give this any life. Don't talk about it. Don't don't act like you're mad at me. Then you'll never have to explain it. We will just say that she made the whole thing up.
Right. I mean, our sources tell us that everyone knew about this since February, basically, when Teresa confronted Joe with
Yes.
Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Joe Gorka they're very close. He's going to go back and tell his wife. So he tells his wife, Melissa confronts Margaret. Um, Jennifer, everybody apparently knows about this, but Melissa just doesn't want this on camera because she knows her kids are going to be watching this. But it then comes out once Jennifer and Margaret start getting into an altercation or fighting about the whole drug comment. Um, is a lot of people want to know is did Margaret pass along the Jackie and Evan rumor? We're hearing that that could have been the case. Did she ever tell you that?
Yes, she did.
So she told you that. So that is true.
I don't know if it's true that Evan really cheated on Jackie, but I know that it's true that Margaret told me that.
Wow. And what were your thoughts about it? What were your thoughts about her denying it publicly and everything?
Who denying it publicly, Jackie or Margaret?
Margaret, that she was behind it.
Well, would you really think that Margaret would ever admit that she was behind something like that?
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay. Now, you did, or your husband actually did tweet Tamara from the Real Housewives of Orange County, and he asked for you to be on her show. She put it out there. She said she wasn't going to do that. And people are saying again that, hey, she's just trying to get on the show. Look how her husband is tweeting. Tamara, like, what do you have to say about that?
I mean, listen, I totally respect Tamra, and it's her podcast. She has a right to do whatever she wants with it and say whatever she wants. Sometimes you get a yes, sometimes you get a no. I mean, I knew of her through a mutual friend, and he told me that he always, spoke to her about me, and thought that we would always like each other, and he wanted to bring me to California to meet her last year, and I didn't really think much of it. If that's what she thinks about me, she's entitled. Everybody has an opinion.
Right. It sounds like you want your truth out there, though, correct?
Of course I do. I'm telling the truth. There's no reason for me. This is not about, you know, did, of course, did I interview for the show? Did I want to be on the show? Yes. Do I want to come on as a Margaret Josephs? No, absolutely not. That's not who I am. That's not what I want to be on Housewives for. I don't
Well,
want to
what
be known for that.
did you want to bring to the show?
What I initially set out to do was to be the fun, show my great relationship with my husband. We were couples who hung out all the time, had a great time together. I love the, fun with the girlfriends. You go out, you have dinner, you're having drinks, you whisper about some menial gossip about,
Right.
whose clothesline is coming out, and you're making fun of it or whatever. Not the dark, mean stuff that, ruins people's families.
Right. Absolutely. Now, it has been said, Dolores is close to Margaret because Margaret has things on her. Has Margaret ever talked about Dolores to you?
Of course.
Were there any things that she said that were negative to you about her?
Negative. I mean, I guess you could consider it negative.
So she, I mean, you were her best friend. You were like her sister. So she has vented to you about, the ladies. It's not like she's innocent in all this, correct?
She is not innocent, no.
What do you want to say to people who are saying, how could you do this to your friend? Since I know that you had said you guys were friends since you were 12, 13 years old. What do you have to say to people who are questioning, how you're speaking out against her now, or that you met with Jennifer and Teresa?
Well, what I have to say is it's just that, hers is public, but for me, she broadcast my personal life to everybody. Anything I told her, she repeated all the time, told everybody, never cared, told my personal business. No matter how many times I said to her, it's like not for you and everybody else when I tell you something personal. You tell everybody all the time. She never cared. She never respected that. It's always, just been about her. So what's the problem with it? You just do yours on a big platform.
Right. Do you think you guys will ever be friends?
I never say never to anything. I wish her well. I loved her like a sister. I would be lying if I sat here and said that all these years were full of bad times. I had a lot of laughs and a lot of good times. So, who knows what life brings you. But for right now, there's a lot of hurt. I've been really hurt, and there's a lot more to my story that hasn't been told.
So what else is there? What else, can you tell us, or what else do you want out there? What do you want people to know?
There's just a lot of, there's a lot of backstory to it, a lot of things about the way I felt. There's a lot of other things that I haven't talked about that I don't feel comfortable talking about. And, I don't know that I'll talk about them, but, she can be a demeaning person. The nicknames of Little Laura and Housewife Junior, those are all things that always kept me in check and let me know that as long as she's up there and I'm just right below, we were always good that way. And she doesn't like anyone speaking up to her or saying the truth. She likes to be told what she wants to hear all the time. And I'm not that person. I am a real, true friend, and I say it like it is.
Thank you for watching. Please let me know if you believe her. Do y'all think she's doing this to get on the show? Or she was looking out for Melissa? Also, were y'all surprised to hear Margaret started the Jackie rumor?